At the moment, U.S. President Donald Trump has fired his national security advisor, John Bolton. Trump said he disagreed strongly with many of Bolton's suggestions. A new national security advisor will be appointed next week. Now, this firing comes amid reports of divisions in the Trump cabinet over a cancelled peace plan to invite the Taliban to the U.S. Bolton was Trump's third national security advisor after Michael Flynn and H.R. McMaster. Well, let's get some more on this from our U.S. correspondent Simon Marks this evening. Simon, a very good evening to you. So what was Donald Trump's problem with John Bolton?
Well, the two men had not been getting along for a very long while, Uveka. If the name John Bolton is familiar to everyone there, it should be, because he is the neoconservative hawk who, back in the George W. Bush presidency, was essentially the architect of the decision to go to war with Saddam Hussein's Iraq. John Bolton is a very conservative voice on matters pertaining to foreign and international policy, and it's absolutely clear that in the last few days he reached the point of no return with the man that he was working for, President Donald Trump. We learned over the weekend that President Trump had invited representatives of the Taliban from Afghanistan to come to Washington to visit the president at Camp David, an idea that Republicans up on Capitol Hill have become absolutely furious about. President Trump rescinded the invitation, he said, because of recent violence in Afghanistan. But it's absolutely clear that behind the scenes, John Bolton was essentially saying to Donald Trump, are you crazy? Are you really planning to bring the Taliban to Camp David in the very week in which the United States will be commemorating the 18th anniversary of the Al-Qaeda attacks on America, on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon? Now, just 24 hours ago, President Trump was dismissing reports of major turmoil inside the White House as fake news. It wasn't true. Everybody was trying to undermine his administration, he said. But then suddenly, within the last couple of hours, he took to Twitter to say, I informed John Bolton last night that his services are no longer needed at the White House. I disagreed strongly with many of his suggestions, as did others in the administration. But even on that issue, the two men are in disagreement, because John Bolton is telling reporters it is flatly wrong for the president to say that he fired John Bolton. I offered to resign last night. John Bolton is saying he never asked for me to resign directly or indirectly. I slept on it and resigned this morning. So if President Trump thinks John Bolton is going to go off quietly into the night, I think he's about to become sorely disappointed.
Well, I suppose, Simon, following the question about who is going to take his place, is what's been the reaction to the firing of John Bolton within the States and outside?
Well, I mean, a seismic reaction here in Washington, of course, not least because John Bolton, as you said, was President Trump's third national security advisor. There will now be a fourth. We're told we'll find out who that's going to be next week. But I think the real reaction could be, Uveka, in terms of American foreign policy. John Bolton, behind the scenes, is the man who over-promised to President Donald Trump the outcome of the uprising in Venezuela against Nicolas Maduro. That was his first problem that he had with the President of the United States, the attempted coup against Nicolas Maduro, strongly backed by John Bolton, never came to pass and never succeeded. Secondly, John Bolton is much more hawkish on Iran than many of the other figures surrounding President Trump. As you know, the French President Emmanuel Macron has been suggesting that President Trump needs to meet the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. John Bolton was implacably opposed to that idea, but will a president of the United States, now freed of his turbulent national security advisor John Bolton, the same president who's met with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, like the idea of meeting President Hassan Rouhani? There could be some big changes in the nature of that bilateral relationship as things go forward. And also, very much up in the air, the future of the peace negotiations that were underway until, just 48 hours ago in Afghanistan. Can they now, in any meaningful way, be reconstituted? How long is it going to take for the president to try and breathe new life into that process following the flap over his desire and decision to invite the Taliban to visit him at Camp David? Lots now up for grabs, and not just the job of National Security Advisor.
I suppose we'll find out on Twitter, won't we? Thank you very much, Simon Marks.